chat. So without any further delay, let us start the walk down the memory lane, or to travel through the time and look at some of the most intriguing and visionary presentations from previous Bits by the Bay and WEBE SMPTE conferences, and discuss what future media technology possibly holds for us. And the person to start us off on that journey is none other than Peter Wharton. Peter?
So good to see you all here. I see a lot of colleagues from early days of WEBE, and including people like Ed I didn't actually know back in the day, but it's great to see you. I see Dwight Wilcox. There you are, Dwight. Good to see you. And Dave Gross. And so for those of you who come from the WEBE days of this, and there's Ellen joining us too. Awesome. Over time, WEBE had the WEBE SMPTE conference, and then WEBE dissolved. We'll talk about, and SMPTE carried on, and the conference ended up being called Bits by the Bay, and we'll explain that. So if you don't know what Bits by the Bay was, it's what the WEBE SMPTE conference morphed into. And if you only know about Bits by the Bay, then the WEBE SMPTE conference is what came before it. And so here we go. So first question for you all, since we're going to have a little trivia here. What year did the following topic first appear in the conference program, SDI? Any guesses?
Wow. SDI, 1997.
I think earlier than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. About 1985, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
80 something?
85.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
I remember a Henninger SMPTE meeting where it was first discussed.
Harry Fox is here too. Awesome. Well, the answer is that I only go back to 86 in my records. So I can only go back that far, and I could not find a program for 87, but I can tell you that in 1988 in the program was Leach doing digital video distribution monitoring. So I think if you're doing digital video distribution, it might be SDI, and especially when you talk about D1 versus D2, man, that was.
When was SDI standardized?
I think in the mid 90s when it finally got Panasonic and Sony got aligned, right? But Ed, do you remember that better?
But the term SDI was around before that, even if the standard wasn't done.
I would say so. And Ed Williams is here. Ed would certainly know the answer to this question. Ed, welcome. I think that's a freeze frame, and he's muted. Anyway, skip to that slide. Okay, and then for those of you who are more recent, what year was the HDTV Bootcamp?
1937.
No. That was Mark Shubin's bootcamp, HDTV bootcamp.
That's about right. Well, it's a trick question because if you remember, we had it in 2000, but we also called it 2010 event and HDTV Bootcamp. So there are actually two of them. But that's a piece of trivia. Okay, so on to where we are here. We've done a lot of these different conferences over the years. I'm gonna work my way backwards through the years. So we're gonna start with 2019, and the conference was titled Bits by the Bay 2019, Evolution, Innovation, and Transformation, and it was canceled because the venue was undergoing construction at the time, and we weren't gonna risk it. So we did not have that. The following year in 2020, we didn't have Bits by the Bay either because it was under construction, but we did do a Next Gen TV Summit, which was actually really well attended. We packed the house. We were at WEDA and packed it in. So on that note, what year did the following topic first appear in the conference program? ATSC 3.0. Throw out a guess.
Right after ATSC 2.
Oh, I won't ask what year that appeared.
That's the better question is when was ATSC 2? Because there was an ATSC 2.
Yeah, it was.
There wasn't really one. There was
there was an ATSC 2.0.
Yeah,
doesn't count.
It wasn't IP.
It was not widely. It wasn't really implemented at all, but it was there if people wanted to do something.
Anyway, all right. The answer was 2014 from Sinclair. All right, so the next year.
That's earlier than I expected.
So, and here's a trivia question for everybody. What do Mike Simon and myself have in common?
So we
Good.
can talk about in public.
That
You
you
live
can
in-
talk about in public. Yes.
You live in the same town?
Not dirty. No, we work together on the same same
On
project.
DTV Express.
Very good.
What else would there be? So
And what-
2018. Okay, go ahead.
What was the correct name of the project?
HDTV Express, DTV Express, the something like that. Yeah.
It was the Harris PBS DTV Express.
Aha. So this is our conference here. We did in 2018. First and only mention, first and last mention of media supply chain, at least for now, in any of our programs. A new term we now use all the time.
Yeah, I remember that being a new term to people
yes, media supply chain.
because it came from industry, I mean, other industries.
Right. First it was the content media factory, then it became the media supply chain.
Yeah.
So, in what year did we first have the topic all IP facilities?
Ah.
What year is this?
I'm asking you. What
Well,
year do you?
It's
What year do you? think it was?
2020,
Well, I know we had it in
2021
20
now.
Then we had it in 2018, because I remember
Oh,
seeing that
shit.
one.
All righty. 2013.
Wow.
See, we were ahead of the game.
Well, what was Stan's answer?
I don't know what his answer was, but he at least posed the question.
Just in time, we're going to get to IP routing just in time to go in the cloud.
So in 2017, like all years, we have a Bits by the Bay, and we had a theme, navigating television's next wave, which tied in with being on the Bay. But like all other themes we ever had, they were meaningless themes because you could put shoehorn any topic you wanted inside them, which was the key. And this was one of the years where we had the jam band play for our pre-party. And I think if I click something here, no, I was going to play some music, but no such luck. Maybe next time. And then we went on to a conference and surfing the content tsunami, where we dealt with the breadth of content that we had to put up with in technology here. We also talked about studio video over IP. So by then we were doing an entire sessions on this, and look who was on the panel here. John Footen, no less. You remember that, John?
Oh, I don't remember that at all.
And Matthew Goldman and Renard Jenkins. And this is where
Actually, I really do remember that, because Renard was continually impressive. I don't know if he's on this call, but he was.
Well, at some point, Matthew, in the only way Matthew can, must have said something that pissed off Renard, because a second later, Renard's expression changed from smiling to this.
Look, well, I don't know if I look too happy either.
But that was a fun panel. And there's Bill.
Hey.
Steve Lewis hanging out on the beach. We did.
Steve apparently was in the wind. Look at his badge.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Yes.
See? All twisted up.
So we all had badges and lanyards by then and things. This is John Mailhot, back when he actually did shave a little bit. He now doesn't. Now he just looks like a rug that went through a blender with some eyes poking out of it, like some people do. And then Paul Briscoe and Mike. And this should be a face that should be familiar to lots of you.
Oh wow, Larry.
Days gone by.
Peter Doherty.
Yes.
Oh, that's not Larry Kaplan?
No, that's Peter Doherty. That's the mayor of Washington News.
Oh wow.
So if you had sat through any pool meetings from the 80s to the 90s to the aughts, you would know Peter Doherty. Right, Richard?
Yep. Also Fiber. Anything Fiber with
right.
Andy Haas are the two names. They were also almost inseparable in some cases on Capitol Hill.
Yes, indeed.
Rewiring the White House too.
I think Andy taught Peter, but Peter took over. When I first started ABC in 1980, I opened the desk drawer in the news desk one day, and there was a sheet of paper in there. It was excuses why Peter was late to work this week. And it was someone had hand typed all the excuses why Peter Doherty was always late for work. One of them was like fell asleep in the shower, you know. But he went on to great things. So here's another question for you. What year was this quote from? We serve business models. TV migration from mass market to micro marketing, perpetually shifting mosaic of audience micro segments. It used to be the mass magazines made all the money, said Mary Berner, Fairchild's president CEO. Now it's not size accounts, but the ability to deliver someone elusive to advertisers.
I feel like that's pretty old just because of the discussion in magazines.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Sounds like something Nick Gold would say, but I don't think it is.
I'll add another sense to it. In the 1960s, an advertiser reached 80% of the U.S. women of the spot aired on simultaneously on the networks. Today, an ad would have to run on 100 TV channels to have a prayer duplicating.
So 100 TV channels. Now we're definitely up into the 80s, 90s.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Last part of the quote.
Maybe.
Internet is not replacing current technologies. Just a different method.
Now we have to jump to the early 2000s.
Yeah.
No, it was a big mistake.
2004.
And when did the World Wide Web start? That's the corollary to this.
1993.
Very good.
So here's a shot in the conference room as it was back then. And if you go to the hotel today, which is why we're not having Bits by the Bay right now, the conference room, by the way, it's Steve Lampin on the right. And for those of you who don't know from early days, would be the gentleman on the left in your picture is Bruce Wall, who in addition to being at NPR, is also the mayor of the town. So when we first had the conference in Chesapeake Beach, everybody was so impressed the mayor came up and welcomed us to the town.
Hey, Peter, can you zoom in at that picture?
I can. Who'd you like to zoom
can
in
you
on?
zoom in at all, yeah, just keep on zooming.
That's Louise right there.
Yes, and beyond Louise, it's John
and John talking back
John
there.
and
right.
I must
Jim
have said
Lean
something
over
really gruesome that he's laughing at me.
There's some scheming happening there for sure.
Steve Lampin.
That was Mache telling me he loves working at Verizon and me laughing.
That's right. That's right. He sensed my lie.
So if you look at that room today, that room looks like this. It's full of slot machines. So we've lost our venue for now, and it may be for a few more years, but we will keep it in mind.
You're gonna have NAB there?
Yeah, right. We could just have NAB there. Exactly. All right. Next question. What year did the following topic appear in the conference program? Cloud. First time we heard cloud. Someone throw out a guess.
2013.
2014.
Yeah, I'd say 2012.
Yeah.
Oh, you are too optimistic. At least the earliest I could find was Jim Duvall in 2015.
I was only off by a year.
Talking about.
It's interesting, though, that it took that long because the book I wrote in 2007 about SOA, I did not mention cloud, but it was right after that. I debated using that word and chose not to because it was too new. So it's interesting it took till 2015 to show up. I'm sure Al Kovalik was talking about it in other conferences before that.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I remember it before 2015.
Yeah.
So what was 2016? Anybody remember what important milestone we crossed in 2016?
No comment.
Not that one. It was the 100th anniversary of SMPTE.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes, we had that big event in Hollywood.
So the first thing we did was we had the nitrate burning festival here, right?
Was that really? Did you put nitrate in there?
You better not.
Yeah, I was going to say that would make a great fire.
Not only that, but it would also make a great hazmat because when you burn nitrate, you get phosgene gas.
Oh, great!
Which for those of you old enough to remember or interested in World War I, that was one of the major chemical weapons in World War I. It's one of the reasons nitrate is so deadly when you have a fire.
Wow.
So and then we also had a band Sorry, I'm getting to the band here. Can you all hear music, or is it just in my headphones?
No, your headphones.
It's just in your head.
It's just in your head. Not even in your headphones.
Anyway, we had a band play, and then they also sang to the theme of Herb Alpert's "This Guy's in Love with You." What was it? SDI must die, I think it was. I'm SDI, and SDI's in love with you. Because it was the end of our SDI days, right? And we had so anyway, so that was the program there, but I'm gonna see if I get some notes for you here. We talked about using COTS hardware back then, and SDI to Ethernet and live content.
CI.
Yeah. And Barbara Lang graced the presence, the head, executive director of SMPTE, along with Tom Hackett, who's not here, but on the call, but who was our SMPTE chair at the time, and Bruce Waller, mayor. Some other familiar faces would be Philip Shoney from PBS, Scott Woods from Harmonic, now Amazon, like everybody else. Who here doesn't work for Amazon right now?
Yeah, in one way or another, we all do, don't we?
Yep.
John knows because we started this Cloud Media Club last fall. We started working this, and I started roping in people to come join us. By the time we launched, everybody besides he and I works for Amazon, and nobody, you know. And it was like I tried to get everybody to other places. Now they're working for Amazon. It was sort of like the thing. And Mark Shubin wearing his pajama bottoms, and you know, over there on the right again. Our colleague James O'Neill put together this nice montage of classic images, including that's actually Mark Shubin on the left there on the phone.
Wow.
You know, you know,
I actually knew him at Carnegie Hall in those days.
And I think James O'Neill maybe buy all this stuff over here one day, because I think that my basement's full of it now.
No, I have a question for those who would know. The stuff on the right, those screens, is that for cameras? Are those like CCUs?
Those are camera CCUs
with screens on them. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It looked like CCUs, but I didn't recognize.
And a BK6 mixer or whatever from RCA up there.
Screens, right, to help pick what you
They
want.
They were later repurposed for the set on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. So.
That's right.
Can I ask another question for the folks who know history? If you go back up to the cameras on the top, you see the casing of those cameras. Why did they make the casing so big and bulky? Like, in other words, why was there a lot of gear inside of there?
There was a lot of things called vacuum tubes.
Yep. Oh, the tube.
Yeah.
And they were lovely and toasty warm too.
Yeah, okay.
They were great space heaters, along with all those lights in the studio. So here's a trivia question for folks. The call letters on the side of the truck on the right, who are they today?
W6XYZ.
Yep.
WBZ.
Nope. BZ was never an experimental station.
I don't know.
Pittsburgh?
Say again?
Detroit. KDKA?
That's
Detroit. No.
Detroit.
So the W6 is a clue as to where the station is.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of where Sixland is.
Yeah.
WHD?
No.
No.
Well, tell us.
Sixland is California.
He's not going to tell us. I'm moving on.
That's Walter Cronkite in one picture, isn't it?
KTLA.
Wow.
I cheated.
Wait,
I went on Wikipedia.
Was that Mark Shubin in another picture?
That is Mark Shubin. Yes.
Actually, here's the piece of trivia. He's actually in all those pictures.
Mark Shubin has been in the industry since the 1800s, and he just never
Under Marconi.
He remembered stringing that piece of string
Methuselah.
between.
He's lived forever.
Right, exactly.
And Walter Cronkite there.
So we had a nice little beach party that year. Some familiar faces occasionally in here. Yeah. And of course you have a cake because it's the 100th birthday of SMPTE. All righty. So what year did the digital video first appear in the program?
The term?
What's
The term digital
video?
video. Ed, how are you?
1986.
Who was that? Rick Singer?
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that. Well done. Well done.
I was there.
And that cassette recorder would have been the D2.
Right.
Would it have been, not D1?
No.
More familiar faces. The gentleman on the right here, you see, his name is Eli Blackman. His father was the late Sam Blackman, the founder of Elemental. He came and spoke to us one year. More familiar faces. I don't think we have Chuck Mata joining us today, but I can have him join us
Yeah,
virtually.
he was here earlier.
On the call?
Oh, no, there he is. I'm
There he
sorry.
is. There he is. Yeah. And then there is
who's that guy on the left?
Yes,
Hugo.
He's not happy to be there, whoever he is.
Peter, you're not.
That's because the guy. That's because the guy on the right's holding up the USB key, saying, "I've just given you all a virus." See, and I'm going.
You remember that? That was right before I spoke. He spoke right before me, so I referenced his speech.
So, speaking of you speaking, this is a slide from your presentation. How prescient must you have been to realize that this wasn't about technology at all? This was 2015 and 1 year before you know what.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to our world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so here we are. And this is Harvey R and everybody having a good time here until they found out the bar wasn't open bar after all. So what year did HD first appear in the program?
88.
That's interesting.
Yeah, 88. I would say 88.
86.
I would have thought so too. I mean, it wasn't like people
you're talking
were talking
about you're talking about the Muse system, right?
But I can only look at the titles of presentations, and if you go back before Bits by the Bay, back in the days of WEBE SMPTEE, most of the presentations are vendor specific about something they were pitching obliquely. So if you weren't shipping HD, you weren't talking about it so much, is what I saw, because they're much more like the new cart machine from Ampex, the new, this and that, and so it was like, it was all tech you could buy, not tech that, it wasn't tech evangelism so much. So the answer actually was 1997, where it was actually just preparing for this. And actually the theme of the conference was preparing for HDTV digital conversion and transmission, which forced everybody to actually talk about it.
What's interesting about that, and also cloud, I see a corollary there, is that those are topics that were definitely in discussion for years before that.
Yes. What show in the United States did HD first? Was the first presentation of HD? What year was the first show, and what was the first show?
Do you count Analog Muse?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
Any HDTV.
Oh.
Well, wait. Are we going to? Is this
BBC was HD in the 40s,
are we looking for? I was going to say, are we looking for a Mark Shubin answer, or closer to like a?
But let's say in the modern era, because the corollary to that was, what year did the first HD, what we define as HD today, what year did the first HD system go on the air? That's the other.
Like over 1,000 lines, kind of HD.
No, because 720p is considered HD.
Oh, true. I don't know. Tell us, James.
So 1981 at NAB is where HD first premiered in the United States, and that was the analog HDVS system from Sony and NHK, the 1125/60 system. And the first system that would be considered HD today to go on the air was the French 819 line system in 1948.
Wow.
Black and white only, and it lasted from 1948 until 1974, and it was replaced by CCAM.
There's the first mention of UHD and HDR in our program. More, better, faster pixels. Delivering the promise of 4K by Mark Shubin.
Is that also the first mention of AXF?
And is that the first time you misspelled my name?
Where's your name? Where's your name in there?
Won't be the last.
It's top. It's the top.
Oh, Cinder.
Yeah.
You're killing me. I'm dying here.
Well, it's the first time you've noticed it.
Oh, I have a feeling I noticed at the time.
I don't recall you noticing the time, and I would remember
I just
that.
didn't say it.
You didn't say it. No, then maybe it's correct because you didn't say something. Maybe you've been misspelling it all these years.
Oh, I
have
can
it right.
assure you I'm not.
What year is that from?
That was 2014.
14.
I believe.
It was 14, yeah.
Okay. So when did we first talk about 3D?
3D. Oh my God.
And this is talk about not shoot the conference in.
Well, we've yet to do that.
What was the first year? No. We've shot this conference in 3D.
So
that sounds scary.
Yeah, James was shooting with his camera.
I was shooting with my 3D camera in 2011.
That was the same year that we did it. So
Wow.
it's okay.
Oh, there you go.
So that was the same year someone had a 3D camera, and the only year someone had a 3D
Ted
camera.
talked about golf in 3D.
Yes.
I would love to see that footage, I think.
You can't play with it.
So this was again the first.
Can be arranged.
I have some green and blue glasses.
No, it's not. And in fact, what type of 3D? What is the term that type of 3D is called? The red and blue.
Anaglyphic.
Anaglyph.
Anaglyphic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Legacy.
Bad.
Ugly. So there's your when plants will first go IP in 2013.
Look at that object storage.
Oh yeah. So I mean, we did hit some fun topics along the way.
Yeah.
Actually, you definitely.
AVC.
Yeah, AVC.
Oh, yeah, AVC's been around
And
for a
HEVC.
while. Yeah.
But that was actually also the first presentation on HEVC the same year.
What year was this?
2013. And we still can't make it work because it uses too many CPU cycles, but that's another conversation. All right, so what about this topic? What year did CDNs first appear in the program?
Wow.
2009.
Wow.
2004?
Say 2006.
Just a guess.
All right. Also in the same program, networked video.
Networked video. Well, we were doing that in the late 90s.
Networked as in Ethernet?
Yeah.
I'm not answering the questions. I'm just putting them up there. Commercial video over the internet.
Now we have to go back to early 2000
and
again.
Streaming.
Early 2000s.
2000.
There you go. 2000.
That was actually the theme of the conference.
Ian guessed 2001.
Yeah, it's a good job. But that was the actual.
I was working for streampipe.com at the time, which streaming media company.
So this was the first Bits by the Bay. The name was given to us by Bruce Wall, who said we should call it Bits by the Bay, and we all looked at him and go, okay, and it stuck. And back when I was making it look like we were having too much to drink when I made the logo. This actually, we talked a lot about file-based workflows back then. That was, big thing. So that was the theme that year.
With Michel Prue, no less.
Michel Prue. No, well, he goes all the way back. And some familiar pictures here. We also did the 3D here, so you'll recognize Ted Sapolsky here, maybe. There's Michel Prue again. Peter Doherty brought the fiber lunch boxes from the White House pool and around the town, the things they used. I don't know what you guys were using, Richard, but they had these lunch boxes they made. And there's
I was impressed with
Dean
that.
Leeson.
That was pretty neat to see.
Yeah. And
Jay Adrick.
some more friends. And Jay Adrick, yeah. Yeah. And there's
Graham
Richard. You're
Jones.
hiding in there.
Yep.
There you are. Talking to who was Carl? Who's your colleague?
Doug
Just
Kelts.
retired. I think.
Doug Kelts. Thank you. Yeah. And
Graham
Tim
Jones
Canary
on
with
left.
Graham Jones. Okay. All right. Next question. What year did the 5.1 surround sound audio make its debut at the conference?
1999.
Bingo. Okay. And that is correct. We'll come to that one. All right. So 2010 was our first event at Chesapeake Beach. Started with a pool party and a conference. It was also an HDTV Bootcamp. And that was the room back then before we had shades so you could see the projector. We didn't know about that at the time, planned well enough. We fixed that. There was the gang of thieves who showed up. You should be able to identify a few people in here. Eric and Tom and James and Pete Putman and Graham Jones. Me,
And
Barbara.
Bob.
No, I'm muted.
Bob Natwick. Yep.
Bob Natwick, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Don Lockett and Bruce Wall. Yep. Okay. And there is a young looking James Snyder giving a presentation.
Oh God.
Look at that
When you-
enthusiasm.
When he was clean shaven.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where's your camera,
Zoom in.
James? Where are you
Zoom in.
hiding?
Peter, zoom in and let's look at James' last name.
Yeah. Look at James' last name, please.
It says James.
Oh.
Yes, exactly. Remind me, who was this gentleman here whose name suddenly escapes me?
Peter.
This
you're.
guy.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Well, Lee, Warren Lee, is that right?
Warren?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
okay,
think
yeah,
so.
okay. Who was with government doing some news agency.
He was
there.
Army television.
Right.
At the time.
Yeah. And okay. Chuck Mata and Gwen Toon and Kevin Beverly from Army Television also. And there is Mark Shubin, as always, wearing his shorts on the stage. The first time I saw Mark Shubin, I have to tell you this story. I was at NAB at the PBS TechCon. And I'm sitting there outside the meeting rooms looking at something. And I see this guy walk by wearing just that and sandals with no socks. And I'm thinking, huh. And his beard's down to about his waist at that time of year. He had, and his khaki shorts were scrunched up on the inside of his butt, as he walked by. So I'm looking at this guy just thinking, oh, well, he doesn't belong here. He's going to get, the staff will come escort him out any minute. And I see him walk in the speaker ready room, and I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be fun. They're going to call security. And now, next thing I know, he's being escorted to the stage, and I'm like, what?
And then he gave another amazing presentation.
And then he gave another amazing presentation. And you realize what Mark really does is give us all license for whatever the hell we want when we go to these events. Because if he can do that, you can wear anything. So he gives. What
is on the podium there? Is that a camera or?
That is, I think, somebody's
like
audio
Zoom
recorder on a
recorder.
tripod. Zoom recorder on a tripod. Yeah,
It looks like a Zoom H2.
I bet you it's baboons.
Before
Yeah.
cell phones, you had separate devices for recording audio.
Wow.
Yes, that's right.
Tell us more, old man.
All right. All right. So here's the question we started with earlier. We didn't have enough old timers in the call. Before Chesapeake Beach, where has the WEBE SMPTE conference been held? There's more than one correct answer.
The only one I ever went to, which was
Hagerstown.
The last one was Hagerstown. Man, that was horrible.
How about Ocean City?
Ocean City, Hagerstown.
Virginia Beach.
Rehoboth?
Virginia Beach.
Rehoboth Beach.
Williamsburg.
Only one missing so far.
At Virginia Tech.
No.
Hagerstown.
Hunt Valley. Hunt Valley. We had it one year up there at Hunt Valley next to Sinclair. And
Wow.
and after we finished having it there, the hotel could never give me a bill, so we never actually paid them. And then the roof caved in and the hotel closed, so that solved that problem.
Honestly, the name wouldn't work, but I'd love to
So
do
it's
it.
the only time we ever had a WEBE 50 conference where a $12,000 bill never got paid and nobody cared.
Look at that. All right, Evan.
Yeah, you've got all this stuff.
Everywhere we have a conference, the hotel closes.
What, there's a theme going on.
We're a tough crowd.
All right, so this is our first HDTV Bootcamp, the first thing we did after, are we kicking analog television to the curb? I don't know when I built all that animation, but there it is.
WUSA.
Yeah,
Yep.
and James
The event
Snyder, our colleague here, basically rehashed the DTV Express with a couple add-ons. So we also had Larry Thorpe and Carl Kuhn and Michelle Prue adding some more additional content to the program. It was well attended. People had a lot of fun. There's Larry Thorpe, who finally has retired at the ripe age of what, 87 or something?
80.
80. Oh, that's not so bad.
Boy, there's a word we need to use today: concatenation.
Oh my God.
Yeah, say that 3 times fast.
When you mash 2 cats together.
It's too late. We're screwed.
Yeah.
I would love to see what's on that
can't
chart.
say we weren't warned.
Clearly, Red's winning in that previous chart.
Yes,
Well,
whatever red is.
In
red,
MPEG it would.
red is running. I thought that was Pac-Man. So 2006, we did not have a conference. We did do a tour of the Discovery facility, which was
Sterling.
fun. Sterling facility. So anybody know what all of this stuff is? Anybody remember any of these things?
What is that?
That would be called videotape.
You're hurting James's
that looks
feelings now.
That looks like C2 and 3/4 inch. Was that 3/4 inch?
I think those are all.
Those are all betas of various types.
But right over here, there's also a George Tech robot. Yeah.
That's why Alan Bender is there in a red shirt.
With little green IMX tapes.
Yep. 2005.
Remember patch bays?
Well, there are no patch bays in that picture, but there were in the one before, I guess. Okay, patch bays. No patch cords though. What's the point of patch bays without patch cords?
It's normalized.
Proctor made the patch bays.
So all I have for the 2005 in Hagerstown is that. I have no program.
Apparently that wasn't a great meeting. That's what I keep hearing here.
Well, Hagerstown was not exactly the most.
It wasn't a great spot.
No, it wasn't any place you really want to go
What
afterwards.
is cash bar question mark?
Yes, there you go.
It means they would surprise you.
And the other thing is fits and starts setup. It's like fits and starts.
Do we charge them? Do we not charge them?
I don't know what fits and starts are, but I think that's sort of like fail fast back in the day, right?
What's the name of the sound company?
Okay. 2004 the theme was multi-channel DTV. This was held. This is the one I think we held in Hunt Valley. Yes, it is. This is definitely the one we held in Hunt Valley.
We're back in the fall now too.
Yeah. So we did not move to spring until Chesapeake Beach. It was always in the fall. And that raises interesting.
That was just retired.
Yeah. A lot of vendor logos that don't.
Yeah. Which of those companies still exist at all or in their original?
Ascar gone, actually. And Coda is
Pinnacle gone.
How many were bought by one company?
Eventually,
and then discarded later. And this was the last year we had a golf tournament. I do believe we had a golf tournament that year, but that was last year. 2003, we were in Williamsburg, and I don't even have a program for Williamsburg. Sorry to say. I have no metadata to offer you on Williamsburg, except that I remember Ken Huddle from Dolby spoke. That's what I remember. 2002. This was the theme this year. And it doesn't,
Even fewer of those vendors are around.
Mike Mayer.
Yeah. TerraWave, Chiron, they're still around. Net Insight, still around. So we had,
Still
you know,
around.
yeah, see, if you came and speak at this conference, you survived. That was the key. That was, so, and this was Atlantic Sands. This was Rehoboth. I think this was, yeah, there were 2 years in Rehoboth, maybe only one.
I remember only one.
Yeah, so 2001 fall convention meeting. Anybody remember this one?
Well, this is right after 9/11.
Exactly.
We did the post-mortem meeting about the World Trade Center being a single point of failure.
So what happened? This conference was held on September 22nd, thus in 2 weeks after 9/11, and I was the producer for this conference. I don't say any other way except I was shitting bricks. I'm like, what do? There are no planes. I can't get presenters in. Nobody's going to go to this. Nobody, you know, we're all in lockdown a week later still, you know, no flights. And I'm calling the hotel and they won't let us out of the contract. And I'm like, oh boy, what are we going to do here? Because we're liable for all the hotel rooms nobody's going to show up for, right?
But everybody did show up.
Well, that's what happened. So I'll read you a letter I wrote to Preston Davis after the conference. So the traumatic events of the past month have caused many, including myself, to reevaluate their lives and count their blessings. I would like to thank you and ABC for your past support on behalf of WEBE and SMPTE, and acknowledge 2 of your colleagues whose efforts have been inspirational during these difficult times. Joe Nuzzo, ABC's RF technical manager, had signed up for last month's WEBE SMPTE convention. We don't usually get industry members from New York for this event, mostly just Baltimore and Washington colleagues. But Joe was on my email spam list as he made the mistake of coordinating ABC's RF plans for the presidential inauguration earlier this year, and highest frequency coordinator inadvertently included him on the WEBE membership list. As Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, is much further from New York than it is from DC, he decided to attend. Already, without knowing it, Joe had already improved our convention by bringing people in from New York. And as this was the first year we had it in Rehoboth, and it never occurred to me that we could draw a New York audience. After the terrorist attack, I assumed that Joe couldn't make it. I also thought many of our attendees, or worse, the presenters wouldn't make it, and I considered canceling the conference. But Joe wanted to join us. The events of the 10 days prior to the convention had been draining, and he wanted a break from New York while still wanting to be with friends and colleagues who would understand what he had been through. While I've been planning to cancel the convention out of respect for those harmed by this tragedy, I now found in Joe's need an even greater reason to have the convention as planned. The board of directors of WEBE and SMPTE agreed, and we as an industry needed time together to see this through and to stand firm in our resolve against terrorism. The show would go on. As the first day drew closer, I realized that I would need to begin the convention with an appropriate message. While I might be able to craft an opening statement, it was also clear that we needed something else we had never needed before at our convention, the national anthem. I dreaded the thought of 100 TV engineers and sales managers singing our national anthem a cappella. If they all sang as off key as I do, then we'd probably scare the sand off the beach. Then I remembered a moving version of the anthem. It had been on Good Morning America just the morning before, as the follow-up to the moment of silence should be 1 week after the attacks. It was a glorious rendition by Whitney Houston at the Super Bowl, introduced by Charlie Gibson with proper reverence and beautifully edited with a type of visuals only ABC can produce. Here was a chance not only to open the convention with appropriate tribute, but also to showcase the best of the best in our industry to his peers. With only 24 hours to go until the start of the convention, I called Mike Davis in the Washington office, the general manager of engineering, and he asked if he could help. He secured the necessary permissions from GMA, had a dub edited, and hand carried it to the convention himself that evening. The next morning, we had a beautiful opening and a wonderful tribute to our colleagues who were lost in this horrible tragedy. Producing this convention is always a challenge. Making it work 1 week after the World Trade Center adds a whole new dimension of difficulties. Several presenters couldn't make it, mostly because of travel problems. I had a few backup presenters who helped me out, and all was okay except for the last presentation at a convention for which I was having a hard time finding a replacement. I wanted to have a discussion of the events of the week prior. How prepared were news organizations for an event of this magnitude? What was the extent of the damage to the broadcast industry in New York? How would they deal with it? And what would be the impact in the future? Could we have survived without 2 gigahertz microwave? And lastly, we need a tribute to our fallen colleagues to close out the convention. I asked Joe if he could help, given that all he'd already been through. I knew this was asking a lot, but he willingly volunteered. Together with myself, representing Fox, Chuck Linder from WRC NBC, George Kinney from CNN, and Ron Peters from WSA CBS, Joe led our panel on insightful and moving presentation. As part of the convention, I had attendees fill out a survey, and many of the participants started the opening production and the closing panel as highlights of the convention. On behalf of WEBE and SMPTE, we'd like to send our sincere appreciation for the support by ABC and employees of our WEBE SMPTE convention. Their efforts turned our convention into something extraordinary, and I can't not thank them enough.
It's amazing how 20 years
yeah.
later, how that still sombers, us all.
Hey, Peter, this is Parr. I like to share my story. I was supposed to be doing transmitter training with my mentor, Tom Freeman, to the guys on top of the World Trade Center on September 11th at 7:30 in the morning. They canceled the Thursday before, just by luck.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I would have been there at 7:30 that morning.
I don't know if anybody else experienced this, but a couple of years later, we went on a tour of the museum, and you turn a corner in the museum, and there's the base of the tower on the World Trade that had been on the World Trade Center, and that was one of those kick you in the stomach moments.
I was helping to stand up. I was helping to stand up New York One that day. The new system at the Chelsea Market.
I was working the intake department at Reuters Television that day. I got called in early.
Yeah.
So I was
a lot of bad raw footage.
I drove into DC that morning, heard the news break as I drove over the South Capitol Street Bridge. As I was driving on Independence Avenue, I saw the big black cloud out the left side of my car when the Pentagon got hit. I went to my office down at 21st and K Street, was watching the news as it all unfolded. And I called up Fox on Capitol Hill and said, "Do you want some help?" And he said, "Yes, come in here." And I thought I'd drive, and I went out, looked outside, and the streets were like it had snowed a foot, and nothing was moving. The city was just total gridlock, and your cell phones didn't work. I ended up running the whole way 21 blocks from K Street all the way down to Capitol. What was interesting to me was everybody had on WTOP cranked up listening, and I could hear the news the whole way I ran down there. It's like every single car radio, windows open, stuck, nowhere to go, with one station turned on.
Yeah. I was at Gannett Corporate at that time, and I had gotten there just before or just after the planes hit, and I was talking to our financial person, looking out the window. And I don't know if you remember, but Gannett was in Roslyn at the time, and actually saw the plane hit the Pentagon, and and you were talking about the big red and black
plume of smoke. Yeah.
I was okay. Go ahead, Terry.
I was just going to say we were concerned, since we were so high up and so close to National's landing zone. We ended up all hightailing it. All of broadcast division ended up hightailing it back to Channel 9 and spent the rest of the day working, helping them.
So I was running Sony's government division at the time, and so it was my group took care of all the government video operations, U.S. government worldwide, and I turned to one of my sales guys and I said, "Hey, where's Wes? Wes Wong was with the FBI. In fact, some of you may know him. And we tried calling him on his cell phone, and he picked up, and we could hear him muffled, and then it cut out. And that's because he was buried underneath the tower. It fell on top of him.
Wow.
And he got out, and he's the one that pulled out the chaplain.
He got out. Wow.
The question is, why would he pick up his phone in the middle of that?
So, but he did. I mean, and it was a very strange. We didn't know he was under there at the time because we couldn't. He was too garbled. But we found out, a few days later when we spoke with him. And then the rest of the time, the New York City Fire Department their equivalent of combat camera, their video crews that were that document all this stuff. So many of them were killed, and the equipment was crushed when the glass started falling. And and then New York was on a complete lockdown, as you know. And so we had all this equipment at various places inside the city. So we spent the next days just moving equipment over to the New York City fire marshals so they could continue on doing their part of their mission. And it was quite a time from a whole different perspective.
So the year before, time to move on to something happier.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Streaming media data services. Thank you for your reminiscence. So, absolutely. One thing that we don't do anymore, but certainly the party I throw at my house is a tradition that follows on to a much better party that came before us, which was the Wiltronix Hospitality Suite, the legendary Wiltronix Hospitality Suite, where Dwight and Ellen would have an open bar in a hotel room. And one of the requirements on any hotel you went to was that they had to allow that, and they could, not charge you $400 for a bottle of liquor. They had us to bring it in. So that was great fun.
This was 2000?
This was so at the Sheraton we did this. Yeah. And the 2000 convention was on streaming media.
By the way, on a previous one, I noticed the one that before you started the 2001 one, I noticed that there was central casting.
Yes, central casting was a theme. Actually, before then, I think maybe 2001 was the first one that did central casting. It may have been. Yeah.
Hey, my company streampipe.com is down there under Internet Content Delivery Network.
Yes, well, Mike Mayer was the section.
He's actually, the one he took me from ABC with him over there.
Right. Yes. Or steam pipe, as he often spelled it.
Yeah.
Technologies for video over ATM.
Yes.
ATM. Boy,
yeah.
That brings you back.
Yeah.
What does ATM stand for?
And look, a Java-based control system.
And video over IP networks. That was iControl, yes, the Java-based control system.
Asynchronous transfer mode.
Very good.
So this was the second year.
Look at it. No, I'm sorry. This is even more exciting to me. Look at the Omnion one, IEEE 1394 to network video, because that was Omnion's big thing, right?
Yeah. Well, there's also Karsten Baumann talking video over IP networks. So this was when we started pushing a lot of this interesting stuff here. But we really were looking for video over IP in this particular conference in 2000. So it was an interesting forerunner to a lot of what we talked about. I apologize, some of the presentations are a bit out of order, but Saturday was all about internet streaming, really, web streaming. And CDNs, there's your first
web streaming in 2000.
Yes.
Sure.
So it's really interesting because, of course, YouTube started when? 2004?
No, earlier than that.
Yeah, but real video existed by then. I mean,
I remember YouTube being acquired by Google in 2007. That year, I know.
Well, what StreamPipe was we placed encoders at teleports and did encoding where the video is actually being brought in via fiber and satellite at the time. So we got the first mile of the acquisition down. It was the delivery that we had problems with because nobody had broadband in their offices.
And I was doing Pan Amset Net36, which was the opposite. We were the other end of the satellite, putting in cache servers at the edge to do last mile delivery.
But who?
And we spent $65 million to launch a CDN nobody subscribed to.
What were people watching in 2000 live on the internet?
Well, they weren't. That turned out to be the first problem that the business model had. Business, everybody was launching businesses without a business model. There was iBlast, there was Idera, there was Net36, there was StreamPipe. All these companies were building in the hopes that they would come. And I remember
Right.
going to
the internet boom, right?
Yeah.
The-
and I
Well, right
remember
before the internet bomb went off, the
And
dot bomb.
So Pan Am said we literally spent $65 million to build the infrastructure to send video over satellite to catch servers lived at the edge and populate CDNs at the edge in the last mile for high quality video delivery to the home. And then I went on all the sales calls and all the content providers, all the film studios and CNN and ABC were like, well, you should pay us for access to our content. And you'd go to all the cable companies, say, we want to put these cache servers in your cable system to say for your internet. And they go, well, you should pay us for access to our customers. It's like, well, who's going to pay us? And you realize that they had never thought about having a business model before they launched this, even though everybody they're putting us in were already customers of theirs. They had not validated with a single one of them that this was a business model they should go after. So happens,
Well,
I don't know.
companies tried to do video on demand before compression was good enough, and I remember going to
Well,
that.
yeah, remember Real Video?
Sure.
Well, HUD had us in there because they were interested in all the training they did for GSA, and they said this is a great idea. We can record this stuff, you can stream it to people's desktops. They had a 3 megabit token ring in their building that had 8,000 employees.
Oh my God.
That client wasn't going to work.
Hey, how'd you like 10 kilobits per second to your desk?
So in 1999 was the first year that, because I was the VP WEBE this year, this was the year it came up to me to produce a conference. And
was that hand scrawled? The WEBE logo?
It probably
looks
was.
Looks like you did a Sharpie.
I borrowed a certain president Sharpie before you knew it. I think what happened there was that the font wasn't in my computer when I displayed this PDF and did a screen grab, and so it just picked some random font. That's what happened. I don't think that was the font I used. We use this. Well, you'll see in the next slide where it's, I think, corrected, because the next one's actually scanned in, I think. So this was the actual program.
So here's a trivia question for you. When did the official start to the digital transition for American television broadcasting start? What date?
Well, it ended in 2000. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. I was going to say it ended in 2009, right?
Right. What date in 2009?
Oh, man.
It was supposed to be February, but got moved to June.
It did. June 12th, 2009.
Now, what was scheduled to happen in February that got canceled because of the move?
There were delays by a whole bunch of stations because everybody was trying to order transmitters and antennas and stuff, and they weren't going to make the deadline.
No, what it planned to do is Merrill Weiss had set it up for about 12 of us from HPA to disappear Monday night, drive down to the LA transmitter site, and each one of us got to turn off one of the AMs, the analog stations.
AM. There's
a
Freudian slip
like
for
3
you.
weeks before that and changes the date. But Merrill Weiss had set it up with every broadcast station in LA to let us do that.
So when did we start the transition? It's got to be
when did the transition start? Anybody want to take a guess? And what event was it started? No, well, no.
Well, I mean, WHD launched, right?
WHD-TV, which was the first digital television station,
96.
launched in July of '96. No, but when did the digital transition officially start?
Oh, like 2001, right?
Nope.
I would say 2005.
Nope.
2098.
Nope.
97. 98.
Who guessed 98?
I did.
It was what was the date in 1998?
Oh, come on.
It was in the summer. It was
nope, not in the
Give it
summer.
to him, James. Just give it to him.
In UTC or Eastern time? Did you want that?
Well, I was in Pasadena at that time at the SMPTE annual technical conference because
October.
It was October 28th, 1998, and it was the John Glenn Space Shuttle launch in HD that was the kickoff event.
Wow. Interesting.
Okay.
Just like NASA launched the first 4K channel, sort of. Yeah.
It was actually shot in analog 1035i, but we don't have to say that.
So this was the first time I produced this conference, and I was very nervous because I didn't know anybody. I didn't know how to do this. And fortunately, people like Richard and Ed and others gave me great support. But then I found myself stranded in Germany for 2 months before the conference, trying to produce a conference remotely with only a fax machine, and nobody really was, barely using email and didn't have a cell phone for work. But I managed to reach out to a friend of mine. So one of the things we did was we did surround sound audio on the Saturday thing, and the presenter was a guy named Robert Margoloff, who was Stevie Wonder's producer and engineer, who, if you know anything about his history, actually recorded all of Stevie Wonder's original recordings all in surround sound. He had Stevie sit surrounded by all the speakers and mixed it into him without wearing headphones while he tracked. So he was always a big proponent of surround sound. And so I reached out to him because Robert and I met back in 1980 and became friends, and we stayed friends we're still friends today. We still talk all the time. And I reached out and said, "Can you help?" And he said, "Sure." And so he called up his friend Laura Kramer at DTS and got content and got a projection system and everything. And then he called up JBL and got David Kim from JBL to provide a sound system for us and have it all shipped out from LA to the conference. And it came, and then turned out that the sound system these were the very first ever made of the new constant directivity speakers line that JBL still makes today. Is still their mainstay of their professional speaker line. And
LSR.
And David really invented that technology. And the speakers we had after the conference went on a private plane to New York because Janet Jackson used them to mix on her album the next day in her studio. So that's what we got for that conference. And I think Robert did a great job. I remember Ed, wherever you are, I saw a smile on your face ear to ear, and I knew that we'd done something right that day. But that was fun. And the interest. So when I first met Robert was back in 1980. My best friend, who's actually staying with me somewhere here today, he came down from New York with his family from college. Had gone to New York and worked for King Biscuit Flour Hour. And the head of King Biscuit Flour, DR Productions, a guy named David Knight and Robert Margoloff, were best friends from days in LA growing up together. So when it came time to send an engineer to cover a live concert for ABC, this guy in New York called ABC, put on the contract that Peter Wharton will be the engineer to mix this. And it's like, and so they comes down to Washington and say, "I don't know how this happened. We don't know what's going on here. This is uncalled for, unheard of. But somehow Peter is in the rider, and I had no idea this was going on. That I would be the person assigned to do this live concert." And I'm like, I don't even know what's going on here. And next thing I know, I'm flying out there to meet Robert, and we became friends and all this. And I always thought, well, being a music engineer would be great. And then I discovered after I knew Robert that no matter how famous you are, it's still a hand-to-mouth sort of existence, because there are no recording studios today, right? I mean, there are like 4 left in the country of merit, and so it's a bad business. So in 1992 or 3, I'm hanging out with Robert at his house in LA, and I'm telling him, "You should, surround sound's going to make a comeback." And he goes, "What do you mean?" "Well, there's this, broadcast stereo system has just been released, this technology, and DVDs are not coming out with 5.1, and pretty soon they'll be broadcasting with surround sound, and they need people like you who actually know how to mix in this." And the next thing I know, next year, Robert buys Bela Lugosi's old house in the foothills of Hollywood and turns into a 5-room DVD mastering suite where he takes all the original stem tracks from all the famous movies and makes those special edition DVDs that are like 7.1 surround and stuff. So, it's funny that the spark occurred. So, it was great to bring him back to do this conference and do stuff like this. And he's still doing crazy stuff today with surround sound, and nothing's changed. So then 1998, this is, I think, what I have for a program. It's not much.
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to zoom in. You know, and I remember attending this one and seeing Sony and Panasonic hanging out and having fun together. I said, well, this is a fun place to be when competitors actually get along like that. Fiber channel servers, considerations for a 270 megabit video network. I don't know what that was all about. Something to do with SD. Next generation HDTV.
That's the data rate of SDI.
I know. So it's interesting. Given that we were still doing 10 megabit Ethernet back then.
That was called, we were going to go mezzanine. Remember that? We were going to run HD over 270. That never happened.
Yeah, right. And then 97. And I found this, something about after a full day of confronting the specter of HDTV, historic delivery of total voodoo, we invite you to join your peers and friends for an after drink at the infamous Wiltronix bar.
It was already infamous.
Yeah, you know, before anybody actually done it, it was gonna be like, really? This is never gonna work, this stuff. It's like this cloud stuff is never gonna take off. I don't care what they say. And there was Michelle Prue, by the way, 1997. Libin, yeah. Dave Walters, a lot of us will remember. Snow Wilcoxon, Omnion later. Bruce Lane, still running around. Steve Wynn, giving a presentation. Where is Steve Wynn? Didn't he not join us tonight? He's still one of our managers, living in two worlds, HDTV migration. I'm not about to find out what those two worlds are.
I wonder how many breakfasts Textronics has purchased over the years.
1996. So this one has a presentation called a facility server that networks transport digital video audio between computer graphics departments and traditional video equipment bays. Is that a network? Is that a?
I actually worked with one of those.
What is it?
Yeah, we tested those.
Is it a network?
Well,
it transports between. Or is it?
It wasn't a network as we think of it today. It wasn't Ethernet. I forget what the actual transmission was, but we had a bunch of servers that we tested at the model station, and they were connected with these big thick cables.
Yeah, it was fiber channel.
Serial connection.
Was it fiber channel?
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny you were saying fiber channel because that was what Avid used back then. To share a JBOD, they had a very clunky system, but it was you had to come through hoops to get control over your volume and so forth. Pretty crude.
We had one of those at Goddard, so I remember it.
Those were the days of SANs, where the data and the control ran on different connections.
Oh yeah.
Classic logo. So this one, 95, is interesting. It's the Sheraton. It's a Saturday only event, getting the most out of digital technologies, and it seems like it's got problems with raster. Maybe that was the point.
That Amber?
Yeah.
It was moving so fast I couldn't see.
A synchronous digital fiber optic network. A new emergency alert system. Yep. And Dave Waters was at Tektronix already back then. He jumped around a lot back then, didn't he?
What was new about the emergency alert system?
I don't know.
Probably that it was the emergency alert system.
That's what it started.
And not the emergency broadcast system.
Exactly.
Went from EBS to EAS.
And Paul Briscoe hadn't yet added the E to the end of his name then.
Okay.
And your crab cakes in the refrigerator.
Somebody's off. Somebody needs to get
Ed, your mic is open. Ed Grogan, your mic is open.
Is it Ed Grogan?
Yeah.
Where is his? Oh, there he is. Okay, Ed.
Sorry about that.
You're killing us, man.
But since I broke that conversation, can I throw in with something?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay, you talked about Larry Thorpe retiring.
Yeah.
and I saw the official announcement of Larry Thorpe retiring. The day after that, Netflix issued a notice that they're making a new movie or something called Jupiter Legacy. Okay, here's a picture they included. Who's that look like? Maybe it's his new gig.
There you go. Excellent.
And that was the day after Larry announced his retirement. And Netflix announced that.
Yeah, that's not really Larry because there's no bottle of Jameson in his hand.
There you go.
It could have been photoshopped.
So going back to 95 for a moment, what in the history of broadcasting, what was the significance of 1995? What happened in 1995 that was significant?
Windows 95 came out, so we could start doing certain kinds of.
Oh, just stop.
Hey, I was writing code in 95. It was important.
Actually,
Yeah,
you
Windows
know,
95
I'll give
was a
credit
big
where
deal.
credit is due. Windows 95 was the first half-decent version.
That's right. That's exactly the point.
It didn't give you the blue screen of death half as often. Although we at Fox, I was at Fox in 96. We put in a bunch of Tektronix servers, and they had Windows NT. And one of the annoying things about it was they had the original load of Windows NT, which if you left a device on for 256 days, 12 hours, and a odd number of minutes, the OS would freeze solid. And so we had 4 servers, and they all froze solid 256 days after we turned them on, which happened to be in the middle of the 7 o'clock newscast.
Oh.
So 1995, significance to the broadcast industry.
Hard drive storage?
Nope.
Nope.
Per server?
No.
No, definitely not.
It was when the Grand Alliance started
Grand
testing
Alliance.
what became ATSC.
You're on one note on this ATSC stuff, aren't you?
The ATTC,
Well,
right?
I had a little to do with it.
So what was different between 94 and 95 as far as the WEBE SMPTE convention?
Well, Ampex is still there.
No. Well, that SMPTE is not in the title of this convention this year.
You're right.
Oh, did we have a falling out?
Well, this is what I'm
they
curious.
haven't gotten together yet.
You know, with Ed and Terry and others here, maybe you can explain what happened. But this year in September was the SMPTE convention, right?
Ed Golf.
Sorry, and then the IEEE convention was the week before in September in DC.
Yeah,
and then the SMPTE convention was right after. So there were 3 conventions in DC back to back: SMPTE, IEEE, and WEBE, which, you know, sounds like an Israeli government coalition needs to be formed here. But so I'm curious. I mean, obviously, I think out of this, somebody realized that there need to be better coordination. But SMPTE and WEBE had done the conference together before this. So what?
Yes.
Any idea what happened? Was it just?
Well, I thought the first one was an experiment.
No, it's been going for years. But well, we'll see.
Yeah, I don't remember any problems.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
It was just weirdness. Okay, interesting. I also thought it's interesting. Our last Bits by the Bay budget was close to $50,000. And so here we have the budget from WEBE back from 1994, where they have the cash increase during 1994, cash from convention payment, $75. The fall convention income, $1,500. Convention costs $1,800. Convention laws, $258. Times have changed just a little bit.
Yep.
The mechanisms were also different. Now everybody pays SMPTE and we pay all the bills, which is one reason that inflates. But still, it's interesting how things have changed. 1993. So Tuvu said that 56 people had attended our conference in Ocean City and went very well, and I believe his notes. Because that's what I have to show. Actually, no, I do have. The good thing is somebody did keep a box full of WEBE paperwork, which I was able to scan in for this. So I did get something. So I have the first draft of the convention here. And the theme is examine the role of personal computer and its use in broadcast environment. If only they knew where this was going to go. Yeah. The Amiga and Iris Indigo, whatever that was.
Remember Kiki Allerstrom?
Iris Indigo, wasn't that SGI?
Yeah, that was SGI.
Yes.
I like how they misspelled Macintosh.
Yep.
Wow, wavelet compression.
That's
Oh,
the
that's
power
cool.
amp.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
IMAX
Amiga
Video
was-
Cube had wavelet
IMAX.
compression.
Yeah, we had an IMAX.
It was unique.
George Mason.
It was a great editing tool.
And so then the actual post theme, well, the effect of traditional broadcasters of the apparent convergence of the previous unrelated industries of computers, DVS, and okay.
Atlantic.
Yes.
VHS quality on fiber.
Fiber to the curb, yes.
Twisted pair into the home.
Yeah.
Basis.
Our own
I remember Basis.
HDTC.
I recoded some Basis. Yes. And future of employment and broadcasting. Still a topic we talk about sometimes, right, John?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get it right someday.
That was a theme we've had at a few conferences of this, compression and training issues. Yes, we saw those issues.
Well, the
Can you go back to that? I'm just
sure. Sorry. You want to zoom in on anything particular here?
The people that are here now are the same people that were there then.
Is it saying are those topics below that? Oh, they're not the same.
This is alternative agenda topic. I don't have the actual program. I have someone's notes for proposed topics. I do not know what the actual program looked like.
And this is 91?
93.
93. Yeah, I mean, interactive video was a big thing, right?
Yep.
Being able to use your telephone.
Well, there was that like
Cube
yeah.
from Warner Cable.
Yeah. So 92 convention report, judging from the list of this year's convention was a great success. The quality of presentations from our 9 speakers, coupled with the theme. Imagine only having to do 9 speakers for a conference. Oh, those have been the good old days.
Wait, they had a sergeant at arms that would keep people's time?
Yes, I love that. Yeah, with a strobe light, a siren, kept up the guard on their own schedule.
All they needed was an air horn.
Now we knew where Mark Cuban got the idea from. That's right. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And so that's what I have for that. 1991, actually, I have what looks like a program. So
Apex.
Don Schmidt.
Virginia Beach.
Frank Brewery. WJLA.
The Integrated Digital Production Suite. Abacus. Rep Mappin.
Carpenter from Ampex.
Isn't Abacus still around in some form?
Yeah.
As a brand name.
Is it just a brand name?
Yeah, I think it's only a trademark now.
Like RCA?
Yeah.
So 1991, the WEBE leaders were Clark Erickson, Bill Beckner, and Andy Haas. And so Bill Beckner would have produced this year. The one I don't have a program for is one Andy Haas did.
Peter Dare from Sony.
Yeah. Yeah, Peter Dare was there.
So what famous data-related corporation the name is a trademark of Ampex Corporation?
Control data? I don't know.
No.
It's not EMC, is it?
No.
No,
it's a famous name today.
IBM.
You have one of their robots in your basement.
Odetic?
Nope.
Storage Tech.
The newer name.
Mastech.
Oracle.
Oracle. Oracle is a registered trademark of the Ampex Corporation used under license.
Wow. Are you serious?
Yep. You know why? Do you know how Oracle came to be?
No.
The Oracle will tell us.
This Oracle will tell you. In the late 1960s, Ampex developed a document image storage system based on 2-inch quad tape called Video Store. And they had to develop a databasing system to keep track of where all the still images were on the tapes. And so in 1974, when Ampex went through one of their paroxysms and they had to fire a bunch of people, they shut down the Video Store line. And the engineering team said, well, can we license both the code and the name from the code, which was the Oracle, as in the Oracle of Delphi, and that code became the code behind the Oracle database. And up until about 2 years ago, the name Oracle was used under license from Ampex, and finally Oracle got them to agree to sell them the rights to the name.
Wow.
But originally it was.
You know how much it sold for, or is that confidential?
I know, and I'm not sure I can tell.
Larry traded them an island.
Probably.
But that is now James's new nickname.
Very
Oracle.
large, both Oracle.
So this is 1990, and this is the year the broadcast industry was taken over by storm by a new technology called TBA.
TBA. Yeah, it's everywhere.
Everybody was
right?
making them. You know, Ampex made a TBA, Tektronix made a TBA, Sony made a TBA.
Hot technology.
It was hot. You know?
Sony made a TBA.
So what it was is I guess they were like trying to keep the names of their new tape formats secret.
That was before the TBC came out.
I think these were sponsors who.
Well, it was TBA.
When was the first TBC?
Oh, 70s.
Nope.
That came after TBA, right?
Nope.
It was TBA, then TBB, then TBC.
67.
Nope.
Oh.
The first TBC was 1956.
Oh.
Digital?
Nope.
No.
Analog. The first. Now the first digital one. What year was the first digital one, and who did it?
It's got to be the 70s.
Quantel?
Yes.
I know.
It was not Quantel. No.
Ampex.
Microtime.
Consolidated Video Systems.
No, it was Microtime in 1973.
Okay.
And it was a whole rack, right?
It was about 3.5 RU.
Do you count the wire wrapping?
Remember Christmas trees? Did anybody have to do Christmas trees?
Yes.
Oh God. I hate
Wait,
those.
Gary Quinn.
So we're almost up to an
Here's
Ed
my
Goff as
boss,
president of
Greg.
WEBE. Where'd Ed go?
That's I now hold.
Yeah,
Gary
Ed, we haven't
Quinn's
heard
job.
from you yet.
That's funny.
There's your D1.
I've noticed
Talked
King
about
Harrison
D1.
was listed there on the previous. There he is again.
CNP telephone. God, I miss them.
What did that stand for?
Let's speak in Potomac, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a harder question than that.
How many CMP telephones were there?
You mean the actual phones? I had a
No,
few.
no, the companies. How many companies were there?
Oh,
Chesapeake and Potomac.
up to midnight. Like half a dozen, I think. At 10:30.
There were four: Maryland, Virginia, DC, and West Virginia.
Oh.
So Dwight had a hard cutoff time at midnight for his party back then. I don't think
That's no fun.
Dwight, we should have gotten everybody cocktails tonight. You know, with the Wiltronix logo and the cups or something.
Well, we have plenty of that stuff if anybody wants it, including frisbees when they had things at the beach, and also the later years showed a cutoff at 10:30, but the earlier years there were no cutoff, and there were people still drinking when the sun came up the next morning.
I remember.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow! Interesting times.
That's hardcore.
You know,
I remember there being some complaints from neighbors too.
Well, we won't talk about those.
let me see what this
Names
other.
I
Hold on,
haven't
hold on.
thought of in a
Sorry.
long
I want to check my listing before I get to the 88. What does this say on this side over here? We got
How
some-
far are you going to go back, just out of curiosity?
2 more years, and then I'm done. I only got 2. I got 2 years left. I only think I won. I got 88, and I think I have 86. So
Midwest
88.
Communications.
Someone discovered PowerPoint.
That says
That's
1998.
98. That's 98.
Oh, well then that's definitely wrong. Okay. This
Oh
is
my
like a
God,
basement.
Tektronix's
Yep.
really, really old ones.
545s.
It's Carl's basement.
I was gonna say, or James O'Neill's, spare
525s.
basement.
I've got some of those that still work.
I
Probably
do
James's
too.
basement.
Yes.
So let's see. Robotic carts and robotic tape machines, I think, were really big back then.
Beta card.
Sets.
ACR 25.
So here's digital video. This distribution, it's the first mention of digital video that I can find so far.
Well, there's D2 on there too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the SDI
composite
reference
digital.
I was saying.
Sony LMA and Odetics.
The VM 700.
700.
That was a
The
great.
Lacarte.
Lacarte. Yep.
EPO. Wow. Before Radamek.
Each.
Bunch of companies that were big and are gone.
I don't know why I have these slides. Oh, here we go. This is better. So this is the Cavalier Hotel, Virginia Beach. A letter to Bruce Miller saying renovation of the lobby, Sandal Restaurant and Lounge and Coral Reef meeting rooms to be completed April 1st. Many changes since 1985. So, here's their upcoming convention hotel. And then we saw these slides at the beginning, but our friends at the conference, and then we have 87. So this is your next quiz. What year did the following topic first appear in the conference program, file-based workflows?
Yeah.
Who was paying attention? You didn't know there'd be a test, did you?
File-based workflows.
Well, there was a presentation in 2002 called Tapeless Newsroom, which assumes it must be file-based, but it didn't say anything about files. In 2011, the theme was file-based workflows. But I'm going to assume the 2002 really was about files. But maybe
I mean, we were easily building file-based systems before 2002. So,
but they were locked into the servers. You couldn't get it out without putting it on an SDI port. We weren't moving files around over Ethernet.
Well, that's not true. You could do that with the Tektronix profile. You could take
the GXF format.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pain in the neck because the connection was so slow.
Yep.
So here's the last conference I know of, but certainly not the first WEBE conference. And Ed and others, I don't know if you know how far back WEBE went and when the first conferences were, but I believe they were sometime in the earlier 70s.
You were doing that before 86.
Oh, definitely before 86. Yeah. I think it was, I saw something about 70s or something somewhere.
I love seeing the shuttered camera.
Yeah.
So those would have been tube cameras in '86, right? CCD was
no. The first CCDs were around.
This our company is Dwight.
M2. Sorry,
M2.
M2. Well, remember M? Before M2, there was M.
No.
What was its trademark under RCA? What name did RCA use for M?
I don't know. Was it VHS style?
Yes.
Well, yeah, that was the whole point. It's the MRAP.
Yeah.
MRAP or VHS.
830 until.
The trademark that RCA used for M was Recam. Recam.
Wow.
And it lasted all of 10 minutes.
Camera was a CCD camera.
Of course it was.
No, don't forget M2 was selected by NBC as their form.
Yeah, and PBS used it for a while.
And I thought you guys at C-SPAN did too.
Oh yeah, we I think we gave you the last of our machines.
Yes, you did.
Mason was using it into the
They
mid-90s.
they live on at the Library of Congress.
I believe, Peter,
Actually, it was a shuttered CCD camera. I see in the notes here.
Yeah.
Dick gave a most convincing demonstration of how effective variable shutters can be.
hey, Peter.
Yeah.
This is Dwayne Wilcox. We represented NEC at that time. It was called SP3, and then an SP3A, and later an SP30. And it was CCD cameras. NEC had the first CCD chips, and we showed them around. And it did have shutters, but that was the first time it was shown.
Yeah, but that vertical smearing, Dwight, how did you get people to buy it with all that vertical smear?
The vertical smearing is something you had to watch out about, but you also, if somebody complained about that, you say, yeah, you get vertical smearing if you point it at a light, but if you do that with a tube camera, it's going to burn out your tubes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Or you'll get some lovely comet tailing.
Yeah. But then they figured out, and I'd forgotten the technical term for that vertical streaking. But that's when that came out. And one other thing, mentioning NEC and high definition, the first high def I ever saw was a demonstration was set up by NEC at Channel 9 back in their back rooms. And it was analog high def, and it took two analog television broadcast channels to set it up. And
that would have been the Narrow Muse one from 1987.
Yeah, it was in the 80s sometime.
Yeah.
Was that a 1050 line?
The Narrow Muse one was 112560, but what they did was they used the Muse system that they used via satellite in Japan, but they narrowed the bandwidth so it sat in 1.5 American TV channels. It was a 9 megahertz signal, and they transmitted it on channel 57 and 58 from the broadcast house tower. And in fact, I've still got the modulator for that in storage.
It was quite fascinating to see. It was amazing stuff.
So that's as far back as my records go. It's just everything that was in the box I inherited over the years. I scanned in and put into this, and I'd love to find more about what went on before this time.
And does anybody have any guidance to how much earlier this went?
Peter, this is I believe that WEBE was in existence at least in 1981 and probably before that, because I joined the NAB in 1981. That was one of the first things that I attended on a local conference basis.
Well, I actually found the letter that had Granville Klink's name on it from 1957, which was when WEBE was first put together as the ad hoc meeting of the executive broadcast engineers for the DC area. And that's also when they started. One of the big reasons for WEBE was to discuss frequency coordination. So the very earliest efforts at frequency coordination started in the late 50s with Granny Klink and a number of the other broadcast engineers in the DC area, both network and local.
And what was the name of the restaurant we had the monthly meetings at?
Oh, you mean the one up in Friendship Heights?
So the last one was Alfio's.
Alfio's.
What was the restaurant before that? Roma. That's right.
Roma.
Across from the Uptown Theater.
With a stuffed lion.
You did it for 3 years before I joined. You were doing it.
Hey, this is Dwight again. First time I heard of WEBE was in the late 70s, and I was visiting with some broadcast personnel, and at that time, the comment was, and I never heard of WEBE. He said, we're having this meeting down in Virginia Beach, and we've got the head of the FCC coming to give us a talk. And would you happen to be in that area? So because we need him picked up at the airport and brought to our meeting and taken back. So I'd never heard of WEBE before, and so I agreed to do that. And I said it on the meeting. And then a couple of years later, I was visiting with Lee Hunter, and
he was at that time at Gallaudet, I think, and before that he was a chief engineer at Channel 7. But Lee said, you know, we have this WEBE meeting, and Thursday night before it gets started on Friday, the sales guy from RCA sets up a hospitality suite. But then on Friday after dinner, they just at the hotel they just dump us out. Maybe you would like to set up a hospitality suite for after dinner. And so that's how I got involved in WEBE. Back at that time, it was, as somebody just said, the chief engineer or VP of engineering at the broadcast station for the frequency coordination. And that's all it was. And no production houses, no government agencies, nothing. And so that was how I found out about WEBE, and it was sometime in the late 70s. So I thought I'd toss that in.
Yeah, no, I think my understanding from talking to people like Peter Doherty was that it was formed, you know, because at the time Pepco was the carrier in town, and also to allow the networks and broadcasters to have an informal place to get together at the management level to talk about union issues and stuff too.
I don't know about that, but you know, when there would be an inauguration or something.
But then frequency,
this is how they got together to do it.
Yeah, I've got a whole nother stack of stuff I scanned and saw the frequency coordination material. There's some interesting things in there. But WEBE frequency coordinators did not actually get incorporated until like 1992 or 1993, I think.
And part of that was the legal requirement around the networks giving money to the effort, and they needed to have like a legal entity to hold it.
Yeah,
the WEBE organization was just, you know, a fraternal organization. Like it
was never incorporated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, never set up formally. Great. So the title of this event was Looking Back, Moving Forward. So what comes after cloud? Who can answer that question?
Thunderstorms.
Sprites into space.
AI and quantum computing.
Ether.
Well, yeah, quantum computing.
Well, why did sun computers come before cloud instead of after? That's all I want.
Because you got to have the sun to form clouds.
When will the first 24/7 immersive video channel launch?
I think a more serious answer to that is that we have continually, I mean, cloud is just a word, right? That references centralized technology that's accessed remotely. We did that back with shared mainframes. And so I think we keep going as the next, so we can, the stuff we're doing now, we can move into cloud, and there's going to be a use case that comes along that has to be done locally, and we'll build some on-prem to solve for that use case, and then we'll go back. You know,
I want to know, is Terry Fox showing something that's actually?
Yeah, Terry's showing it. It looks like one of those old, you know, computers.
8080.
Yeah. Well, that takes you back. Oh, there's a Trash 80. Boy, I remember Trash 80s.
So is this a photo you're showing us, or you actually?
You got a PDP in there, Terry?
These are real. They'll boot up.
Oh my gosh!
I was gonna say, do you have a PDP in there?
Still run WordStar and CPM and all that stuff.
So would you agree with my theory that obviously we go back and forth between centralized and distributed all the time?
Yes, always.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's unless quantum computing eventually is able to break everybody's passwords.
Yeah. Well, and then, don't forget,
then it's going to change
quantum
everything.
computing is where you have 4 states instead of 2. That'll make things interesting.
So I have a conspiracy theory I want to share with you all. You know how they announced that they were able to break into Bitcoin and get that money back for Colonial Pipeline?
Yes, I saw that. I saw that too.
I don't think they actually did. I think the NSA and CIA secretly have one of these other Bitcoins is actually run by them, and they wanted to make Bitcoin look like it was actually infiltrated and breakable, so that everybody, all the criminals would move all their money
They'd
out of
lose
Bitcoin
faith.
and into Dogecoin, which is actually run by the CIA. So now they'll be able to track it everywhere, you know? Or Dogecoin.
Peter, you spent too much time working for the CIA in Russia.
Peter,
I've been
Peter,
found out.
as an expert, I'll tell you, NSA would not cooperate with the CIA or the other way around.
Well, there's always that. That's true. Getting two agencies to work together would always be the hardest part.
Especially those two.
All right. And finally, I want to know one other thing, and that is, when will video screens in the home stop being rectangular?
Why?
Excellent question.
When they're holographic.
Why are they rectangular? They just started out round in the beginning. Why are they rectangular now?
Yeah, no, it's Peter. So I remember in the 80s, I was young and I was thinking, why are we doing anything the way we're doing it? And when XML first started, which is in the 90s now, I actually thought, why don't we just describe every pixel and it's individually with all of its metadata attributes, and then we can make anything, any screen, anywhere, any shape, anything.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no reason it should be this way, except historic reasons.
Essentially, that's how pixels work. You have, 3 samples with the metadata to tell you how to put it back together again.
Good point.
Not only that,
it's just
since
not
people,
XML.
Since people are generally vertical up and down, maybe we should go the other way.
Well, I think another interesting point that none of us are talking about here is the role that VR will play in the future.
VR and AR.
Because I see my kids on VR a lot, and they've even watched movies in VR with their friends.
So, immersive video, right? Exactly.
So here's a trivia question for the hive mind. How did the original aspect ratios for television come to be?
You're talking about 4:3?
4:3 and 16:9. How did they come to be?
Well, 16:9 was derived from 4:3, wasn't it?
Not really. It was a decision made in the 80s. And there's actually a magazine article about it.
Isn't it like the visual arc and the resolution of the pixels, both horizontal and vertical?
Nope, because there were no pixels back in the 4:3 era.
So if we go back to
film aspect ratio, though,
if we go back to film aspect ratios, I was going to go back there. Yeah, film aspect ratios. We had 1:1 in the 30s, right?
So when folks started talking about advanced television in the late 70s and early 80s, they went to a number of different organizations, and one they went to was the ASC, the American Society of Cinematographers. And they basically said, we want to come up with a new way of doing things. What would be a good compromise, or what would be a good new aspect ratio? And they settled on 16:9 because it was sort of halfway between 4:3 and the cinema aspect ratios. And and there's actually an article in American Cinematographer magazine about making that choice, specifying 16:9. And then 30 years later, there's another article about why the hell did we ever do that?
Well, do you guys
so how
remember...
about 4:3? Why 4:3?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking it has to do with film. Is that
you are
not
correct?
Yep.
But what does it have to do with film? Where did it come from?
Well, we were 1:1 in the 30s, right?
Nope.
No, it started as the Academy.
Nope. You were 1:1 in the silent era, in the early years before standardization.
Oh, and then did we create sound on the side of the film, and that spread it out to 4:3?
And the reason it's 4:3 is they had to take a chunk of the real estate on 35mm film and give it to the soundtrack, to the sync soundtrack. And that's when the new Academy aperture became 1:37:1, which is 4:3.
Yeah.
And then because so much involving the development of television, the only way to actually transmit pictures before cameras really became practical, because they had to invent cameras, was they had NIPCO discs that could scan film, and it was the only thing that could give you decent contrast And so they scanned 35 millimeter film as part of the earliest television experiments. And that's where the aspect ratio for television, it stuck. That's where it came from.
We live and learn.
I'm getting a message from Zoom. They're out of storage space.
Is everything that we're talking about, or is everything you're talking about, James, is that in that SMPTE book that we just published?
Well, I can tell you that the 4x3 and the 16:9 is in there because I saw it.
Yeah. Cool.
I participated in that book. So the 4x3 part I actually put in there, and the thing about C. Francis Jenkins, because not only was he the first president of SMPTE, and not only was the reason SMPTE created was to standardize those film formats, but also C. Francis Jenkins owned one of the earliest television stations, which was right here in Washington, D.C. He put a NIPCO station, a NIPCO disc, mechanical station on the air in 1919 from Connecticut Avenue and L Street. We actually have photographs at the Library of Congress of his apparatus and him.
Well, possibility of sharing those?
Well, there's at least one photo that I believe made it into the SMPTE book. But yeah, if I can dig up the references, you can get to them online. Just, in fact, go to loc.gov and search for C. Francis Jenkins DC TV station.
Thank you, Peter.
It's great to see you all, and
great
so
walk
many
down memory lane.
It was a fun walk, and I actually got to meet people like Terry and Ed Dalton, who I had not met, but whose names I'd seen for ages in all these documents and stuff. So it was nice to finally meet you all. And Ed, Williams, great to see you, and Dave,
nice
Gross,
to see you, Ed,
and Dwight and Ellen, yeah, and Rudy. There you are. You haven't said a word all night, Rudy.
Yeah, been
And
quiet.
Richard. So all of the and Carl, another past president, and you were never WEBE because you were a vendor. You could only show up and sell stuff. You couldn't actually be in it. In fact,
collapsed. There was nobody came to it except vendors.
Well, there were no executive broadcast engineers left. They were all.
The real reason it collapsed is because James went to work for the government, and that killed it off because you couldn't have a government person running it. That's what really happened.
Actually, it was because nobody showed up to the monthly meetings anymore, and I'm like, why am I here at Alfio's on my own?
You like the food?
Yeah,
I did. I must admit, I've gone back from time to time.
It's still there, huh? I guess
still there.
Well,
Actually,
it's wonderful to
since
see you
the
all.
pandemic.
This was fun, and it was also great to go through all this and document some history and hear from all of you some stories and things. I'd love to hear some more if you have some. So, down the road, we'll do it again, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you all.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Peter.
Great to see everybody's got. And we're not. Nice to see all of you engineers with all your contraptions in the background. What's that?
I just said it's wonderful seeing Ellen and Dwight.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good to see you too.
Good night.
All right.
All right.
Good night, everyone.